Welcome back to another episode of Business Highlight, a show by the Boca Raton Tribune, where in Business Highlight, we talk to local business professionals, highlight their companies, their nonprofits to our viewers. My name is Pedro, and before we get started, make sure you follow us on Facebook, share the video, follow us on YouTube as well. We're on YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, the whole nine right there below. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Jim Gavrilos, the president and CEO of the Education Foundation of Palm Beach County. Jim, thank you so much for taking time out of your day and talking to us today.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. We love to share what we do with the community and especially the business community.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. So for those that don't know you, before we even get started, I love how we got the memo to both wear red.
Right.
December, so we're all wearing red. So I thought that's great. But before we get started, just introduce yourself a little bit to the people that might not know who you are.
Well, and that's actually a great lead-in into the Education Foundation. You know, before I tell people what I do, I'd like to tell them why I do it. Pedro, I've been around Boca Raton for 25 years. All of it in the nonprofit world. Most of those who know my name will remember me from my days at Boca Helping Hands. For almost 8 years, I was the executive director at Boca Helping Hands. And let's lead into what made me take this position, because again, I think Boca Helping Hands is one of the best organizations out there. Every year, families who receive pantry bags of canned goods have to fill out a government form called the TFAP,
right,
on July 1st. And so a few years back, there's a whole line of people waiting, and I'm with a clipboard passing out these forms, and we've got a whole bank of volunteers at computers ready to go. And Pedro, I couldn't make this stuff up. The first 5 people leaned over and whispered in my ear, "I can't read."
Wow.
And I have to tell you, I was driving home that night on Palmetto Park, and I was literally crying in my car. And I just looked up and I said, how is it possible in 2016 America that people can't read?
Mm-hmm.
And it occurred to me that the rest of my life needed to be spent in the education space. And that's when I made the decision. And right about that time, the Education Foundation called me up and said, we'd like you to come up and be our president CEO. So since August of 2017, I've been the CEO here at the Ed Foundation, and doing some pretty amazing work throughout Palm Beach County.
That's awesome. So I guess it's a perfect segue to the next question, which was, for those that don't know what the Education Foundation is, what is it and what is it and what do you guys do?
Great question. So I always start by saying, okay, if you're in Tallahassee, don't listen to my next statement. I think we can all agree Florida's kind of a goofy state. We're a little off. One of the things that Florida does, every county is its own unified school district. The result is you have Jefferson County up in the Panhandle that has 800,000 children, 800 children. You have Palm Beach County that has 179,000 children.
Wow.
Palm Beach County is the nation's 10th largest school district. Every county then, in theory, also has an education foundation. Some are very, very small. Pedro, in most cases, it's one person who part-time, kind of does some work. Right. We have a staff of 6. And the stated goal of the Education Foundation is to bring the business community and unite it to the world of education. Clearly, the tax dollars that school districts get from Tallahassee are not enough to sustain the programs that we need to educate our kids. And so the Education Foundation steps in, and we raise money from the corporate world, from the business community, from private philanthropy, private foundations, just private individuals who are committed to teachers. They're committed to students. They're committed to the schools of our public school system. Because the truth is, this is our future. Think about something. If this doesn't keep you awake tonight, nothing will. Your future doctor, your future cardiologist, your future lawyer, your future pharmacist, your future employee, your future boss is sitting in a public school in Palm Beach County right now.
Yeah. Wow.
So again, just kind of continuing, what happens is with the funds we raise, we then have 2 basic operations. Let me talk about number 1. We are a grant-making organization. We awarded last year almost $1 million in grants to schools, teachers, and principals.
That's great.
I'm going to give you a couple of different buckets. We have our matching grant program. We get some funds from the state, from Tallahassee, which we then have to match dollar for dollar with local dollars. So some of the programs that we're funding, we are funding now for our 3rd year a $30,000 robotics program out at Pahokee Middle School. Obviously, you think about the local match, the usual suspects, Florida Power and Light, Aerojet Rocketdyne, some of these great tech companies. Pedro, why would we fund a robotics program at Pahokee? Now, you go out there and talk to those kids, and what's the only out that they see?
Pahokee? Football.
Football, exactly.
Yeah, sure.
We're out there telling them your out is right here. It's your brain.
That's
You
right.
got to use your intellect to get out, to economically be upwardly mobile. 3 years into our robotics program, we now have 50 children in Pahokee who are looking at careers in science, technology, engineering, math, and computers.
That's awesome.
Great illustration of what we're up against here in Palm Beach County. NASA actually caught wind of what these kids at Pahokee are doing, and they began communicating with NASA scientists. This got written up into a national magazine. We were talking to these young kids at Pahokee and said, you need to keep this article for when you apply for a scholarship. And this one middle school girl said, well, what do you do with the scholarship? I said, well, honey, when you go to college. And she looked at us, she said, my mom cuts sugar cane in the field. In my family, we drop out of school when we're 16 and we go cut sugar cane.
Wow.
These are the kind of things we're up against, Pedro. Second bucket, I'm going to circle back to that in a minute. Our second bucket, we call it our Go Teach grants. These are smaller grants of about $1,500 to a collaboration of teachers, or $1,000 to an individual. Just a month and a half ago, we had our Go Teach ceremony, and we awarded $90,000 in grants to local teachers right here in Palm Beach County to do incredible things. I'm going to share with you one of our incredible teachers is at Spanish River High School right in Boca Raton. She got a Go Teach grant of $1,000, I think 3 years ago, and started doing some research into sepsis. This is what happens when you get an infection in a hospital. It's what killed her father 30 years ago. Her research caught the attention of MIT, and they awarded her a $10,000 grant to do her research at Spanish River High School, getting these high school kids excited about science and technology. All started with a small Go Teach grant from the Education Foundation. Our third bucket of funding, we call it our big program specific grants. We're funding a firefighter academy at Palm Beach Lakes High School. We're very proud to announce a partnership with Carrier Corporation, who's funding an HVAC program at Royal Palm High School. And this year, we're super proud to announce funding from the Frederick DeLuca Foundation to establish a cybersecurity school at Santa Lucia's Community High School. Pedro, these kids are coming out of high school going into cybersecurity without one day in college, starting at salaries of $60,000 and $65,000 a year.
That's fantastic.
So that's some of the programs we fund. I want you to think about some buckets, and this is so important for your listeners and audience to understand. Obviously, STEM is a big issue. We want to encourage, especially women and young women and people of color, to look at careers in STEM. Our second bucket that we tend to fund is literacy. We fund a number of literacy programs. Pedro, much of what I say people are going to forget, but I want them to remember the next 60 seconds. Why is literacy so important? Our school district has a strategic plan. One of the 4 goals is to have 75% of our third graders reading on grade level. Why is this so critical? Follow this, Pedro. A 2009 Northeastern University study demonstrated a third grader who's reading below grade level is 4 times more likely to drop out of school.
Yeah.
If they're living below poverty, they're 6 times more likely to drop out of school. And here's the sad line. A child who drops out of school is 69 times more likely to be incarcerated than a student who graduates. The state of Texas determines how many prisons they're going to build based on third grade reading scores.
Really?
I couldn't make this stuff up. They can extrapolate 20 years down the road, and they know how many prisons they're going to need based on third grade reading scores.
Wow.
So now tell me that education and literacy aren't important. So we fund a number of literacy initiatives. One of our great funders, Ventus Charitable Foundation, Miss Meredith Trim, funds a literacy program that starts at kindergarten. It's called Multisensory Strategies. It identifies children who may be dyslexic as early as kindergarten and starts to give them the coping mechanisms they'll need to learn how to read. Because let's go back to those third grade scores for a minute. From 0 to third grade, you're learning how to read. From third grade forward, you're reading to learn. If you haven't learned how to read, what happens? There's this drop off.
Yeah.
So we fund literacy programs, college and career readiness. Certainly, we've talked about the Fire Science Academy and our career programs. And then we also fund some exceptional student programs. So that's kind of the first bucket of what we do, the first operation.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. That's crazy because some of the listeners might not even put it in their minds that we're in Palm Beach County and it's such a big county that we're just so focused on the Boca del Rey area of the county, and we forget that there's a place like Pahokee and stuff like that, that kids don't have all the opportunities that we have over here.
Well, let me tell you about our second operation, which really, I think you're exactly correct, sir. It illustrates your point. Palm Beach County, by the way, geographically is the largest county east of the Mississippi. We're enormous. According to the most recent census, 1 out of 5 children in Palm Beach County live below the poverty level. Well, in a school district our size, that's 40,000 kids. So here's the question. On the first day of school, when they go back, and these children don't have pencils and pens and backpacks and paper, how are they supposed to learn? And that leads into our second operation. 4 years ago, we started something called the Red Apple Supplies. We focused on 8 high-need Title I schools. Then we went to 32, then we went to 45, then we went to 53. This year, we're serving 63 schools. I'm actually sitting right now in our Red Apple Supplies operation. When a school becomes a Red Apple Supply shopper, their teachers can come twice a year, and we give them whatever they need.
Wow.
Last year, we distributed $750,000 in school supplies to our Title I teachers to make sure their students have the tools they need to succeed. And so our partners, like certainly Office Depot is one of our best partners in terms of getting us not just financial support, but supplies and school supplies and pallets of school supplies for these teachers. And Bank of America has done supply drives for us, and Roger Dean Stadium, and all of these businesses throughout the county say, let's make sure at the very least our kids have school supplies.
Yeah.
As you said, we don't normally think of Palm Beach County as a place of need. There are 40,000 kids in Palm Beach County who went to school on the first day of school with no pencils and pens because their parents can't afford them.
Yeah.
So a lot happening here at the Education Foundation, grant making and also operating our Red Apple Supply store.
Right. And so I guess it's the perfect follow-up for that is how can the listeners and the people watching this later, how can they, take action and help the organization?
Couple of different ways. One, I've got our website up on the chat box, simple, educationfoundationpbc.org.
Yeah.
There's another real simple way that people can support us. I mentioned the Go Teach grants. This year, as I said, we awarded over $90,000 in grants to 73 different teachers and schools. Simplest way to do it, you can buy the license plate. Florida has more cause-oriented license plates than any other state. When someone purchases the Support Education license plate, in whatever county you register your car, that extra $20 goes to the Education Foundation.
Wow.
And so think about that. There are over 1.5 million cars registered in Palm Beach County. If just 1% of those, just 1%, if 10,000 people would get the education license plate times $20, that would be $200,000 a year that we could award in teacher grants. And so it's one of those things I say to the public all the time. Easiest thing you can do, go get the education license plate. Once you get it on your car, you don't even think about it every year. You renew your license, the Ed Foundation gets that $20 and it goes right to support teacher work. So you can go to our website, you can volunteer at Red Apple Supply. Your business can volunteer to have a supply drive. And many businesses in town become what we call our champions of education,
Right.
where they award the Education Foundation a grant or a contribution throughout the year for some of the different events and programs that we sponsor. So our champions of education are certainly, like I said, they're the ones who make sure we can do our jobs.
Again, guys, we're talking to Jim Gavrilos of the Education Foundation. We're going to take a quick short break, and we'll be right back to continue this amazing conversation. And we're back. So again, as you guys know, we're with James Gavrilos from the Education Foundation of Palm Beach County. James, we just had such a great conversation, like 15 minutes about how important education is to Palm Beach County. We're going to totally touch back on that, but before we go there, for the people that don't know, right? What is like your day-to-day activities look like as a president and CEO of the foundation?
There are no 2 days that are the same. I'm out in the public 7 days a week, speaking to CEOs, businesses, community groups, synagogues, churches, anyone who cares about education, ultimately anybody who cares about our future. One of our donors is a gentleman named David Nicholson, one of the smartest people I've ever met, and he has said it perfectly. Children make up 20% of our population, but they're 100% of our future. And so when you think about public education, the second corollary there is important. Think about what you want Palm Beach County to look like in 20 years. The one agent of change that touches the entire county is the public school system.
Uh-huh.
And so we have to make sure that our children have the best education possible. They have the best teachers, the best programs, and in particular in these hard hit, economically challenged regions. Pedro, as you know, I ran Boca Helping Hands for a long time.
Yeah.
I know what happens when you don't educate a child. They're standing in line in a soup kitchen 10 years from now.
Right.
This is fact. It's just the way it is.
Yeah. No, touching a little bit on the hardships of this year, especially. How has COVID-19 affected the nonprofit this year, and what are some ways that you guys were able to kind of create lemonade out of the lemons you guys were given?
Well, I have an amazing staff. One of them is sitting behind me, Teresa here. She's one of the brains of our outfit. We had to pivot because obviously, when the shutdown occurred, and back on March 13th, Superintendent Dr. Fenoy made the decision to keep the schools closed when we came out of spring break.
Yeah.
And we shifted to remote learning. With Teresa and Lloyd, who run my Red Apple Supplies, we created something called Kits for Kids, where we would actually pack up school supplies and then go to the school feeding sites.
Wow.
And as the kids would come to get their boxes of food for the week, we were distributing school supplies. And we distributed almost 6,000 of those.
Wow,
another thing we do where some of your business partners may want to join, in August, we have a backpack initiative where we have businesses who adopt schools. Dell has adopted a school, Cast Construction, Gunster, Florida Power and Light, U.S. Sugar, Palm Beach Sheriff is another great partner. They adopt schools. Pedro, this year alone, we passed out over 5,000 backpacks and all the school supplies they need for a year in Pahokee, the Glades, Riviera Beach, throughout the county. So again, during this coronavirus shutdown, we've shifted to Kits for Kids. Our Red Apple Supply operation has gone entirely online. Teachers can now get online, order the school supplies they want, and they can either come by and pick it up with a contactless delivery, or we'll actually deliver it to their school.
Wow. Yeah, another thing that I think about when we're talking about coronavirus and the schools being shut down and things like that is the remote learning. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, like I thought about a lot when it was going on, is these kids that, as we're talking, right? Let's say Pahokee, because that's the one you were mentioning it. Some of these kids might not have a laptop to use for remote learning.
Well, funny you should mention that.
Yeah, and we were talking about that earlier, and I just wanted to picture, bring it in because it's such an important thing that you guys are doing.
So when the pandemic exploded back in March, the first thing we did, we actually raised almost $600,000 in about 10 days. And we were able to provide 2,000 Chromebooks to students who didn't have them. As August began and the new school year began and remote learning was still a thing, the school district realized we need to make some major efforts.
Yeah.
Pedro, there were 25,000 children in Palm Beach County, composed of about 15,000 families who do not have access to the internet.
Yeah.
A major initiative was launched, a collaboration like I don't think has ever been seen before. First, all credit to Palm Beach County, who put up $20 million for infrastructure, poles, fiber optic cables, and what's called a root distributor radio to send a mesh signal that covers a neighborhood. $20 million of CARES Act dollars were invested by Palm Beach County. The school district invested another $45 million so that every child now has a Chromebook. But there's a third piece of the puzzle. If a family doesn't have the internet, how does the Chromebook connect to that signal?
Yeah.
Simple, a $55 Wi-Fi extender box. We came in, the Education Foundation, and in a matter of 8 weeks, we've raised almost $1 million to purchase these Wi-Fi extenders for these 25,000 kids. And I want you to think about something for a minute. This goes so far beyond kids doing their school lesson. The internet today is what electricity was 100 years ago.
Yeah.
If you don't have the internet, you can't apply for food stamps. You can't apply for a job. You can't apply for a bus pass from Palm Trans unless you have internet. Well, what are these families supposed to do? Since the shutdown, Pedro, have you been to a doctor? We did a telemedicine, didn't we?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
go see my cardiologist. We have telephone. We have appointments on Zoom. What's a family supposed to do if they don't have the internet?
Right.
And so an incredible collaboration came together of the government, Palm Beach County. The city of Boynton Beach has kicked in $75,000. Delray is looking at it. Then there's the school district. And then the business community came together. PNC Bank, the Miami Dolphins donated $100,000 to this issue. Chiefs for Change donated $50,000. The Frederick DeLuca Foundation. Frederick DeLuca was the founder of Subway Restaurants. The DeLuca Foundation contributed $100,000 to this. The Pew Fund, the Stiles Nicholson Foundation.
Yeah.
These incredible businesses came together and said, we need to make sure that every child in Palm Beach County has access to the internet, not just for their schoolwork, but as I said, long term, that their families can access the internet. Our friends at Quantum Foundation did a long-term study. Pedro, these are not easy things to say. Families who don't have access to the internet, which by and large are families living in poverty,
Yeah.
over their lifetime, they earn less money, they graduate at lower rates, and they have a lower life expectancy. They earn less, they learn less, and they live less. We're equaling the playing field.
Yeah.
By providing internet access to these 25,000 students and their families, we're giving them equity of opportunity, that their families have a shot at the American dream. Obviously, we're focused heavily in Pahokee and the Glades. Believe it or not, one of the highest concentrations of poverty in Palm Beach County is Lake Worth Beach.
Wow.
Tremendous poverty. Pleasant City, West Palm, Riviera, Boynton, Delray, all of these are neighborhoods that will be served by this mesh network and this internet access program. It is without, and this is coming from a guy who ran Boca Helping Hands for almost a decade. Pedro, this is the most impactful work I've ever done. We are bringing opportunity to 15,000 families to have the American dream.
Wow. And then I don't know how much better to say that, but that's amazing stuff that you guys are doing out there. These people definitely need help, and having the Education Foundation out there to help these people in need, especially right now, is huge. And
It is.
and I'm thinking too now about, like, obviously your position at the Education Foundation, and you've mentioned so many great things you guys are doing, but what has one or two of the most rewarding parts of working at the Education Foundation been for you?
For me, there have been, I would say, two. Even obviously, we call it the digital inclusion plan, is the most impactful. The most rewarding for me, believe it or not, it's not just the big grants, it's the smaller Go Teach grants. Our teachers are so creative. You'd be amazed at the grant, and we score them. We have a whole committee of people that score these grants. Pedro, when you see some of the creativity in these teachers, there's one teacher in a school teaching deaf and hard of hearing students, and she came up with the idea that when they're reading a book, if the book mentions a dinner or a lunch, she goes to Publix and buys the stuff, and the kids make the food.
Oh, wow.
And it just brings the book alive.
Huh.
Another teacher in another school was dealing with autistic children, and she asked them to write a song. That was a ukulele project. And this one child, who was very uncommunicative, wrote a song about being bullied.
Wow.
When you see what these teachers can do with $1,000, it's absolutely astonishing. The second thing that really, I think, impacted me, with a grant from JP Morgan Chase, we established the Fire Science Academy at Palm Beach Lakes, and that's now in its third year. At the end of the first year, we went out. They have a fire truck to train with. It's really incredible. We went out there to dedicate the fire truck, and there's an actual fire captain from Palm Beach Fire Rescue who kind of oversees this academy. And he pulled us aside and he pointed to these three kids that just looked like models. I mean, they were just ramrod straight in their little, fire cadet uniform. And, you could see that they were leaders within the class.
Yeah.
And the fire captain said to me, he goes, when this program started, these three kids were the biggest troublemakers in the school. But they realized that this may be their only chance to graduate high school and get a job. Pedro, when these kids come out of high school from Palm Beach Central with the Fire Science Academy certification, they could walk into any fire department in the United States and get a job. And that message got through to these three kids, and they've become model students and leaders in the class. It is amazing what happens when the business community unites itself to education. We change lives. We absolutely change lives. Um, the hardest decision I ever had to make personally in my life was leaving Boca Helping Hands.
Mhm.
But when you see the work that we do here in a county the size of Palm Beach, in a student basis, as I said, of 179,000 kids, 15,000 classroom teachers, 179 high school, middle school, and grammar school campuses, the impact we're having is massive. What's encouraging for me is the support we get, first of all, from the school board, from Frank Barbieri, who's a good Boca guy, and the school board. Definitely Dr. Flanoy, our superintendent, and the senior staff at the administration, all the way down through the business community. When you think of our champions of education, and I've already said, Wells Fargo and Gunster and PNC and Florida Power and Light, United Healthcare, these companies who say, we believe in kids, we believe in Palm Beach County, we're going to invest ourselves and make sure that our kids have the best opportunity. It's just so inspiring. We come to work every day and we're ready to rock and roll. We're a staff of 6. 3 of the staff members here are former educators, former
Nice.
teachers. Yeah.
That's
Uh,
cool.
the accountant for the Ed Foundation started out as a high school teacher. He was at Atlanta. In fact, he was at Olympic Heights for a while, right in Boca Raton. Teresa, who's behind me, was a teacher for 12 years. Jennifer, who's a good Boca girl. Jennifer, who runs our programs and grants, was a principal at Pace School for Girls. So these people bring a passion for education and a commitment to Palm Beach County that just inspires me on a daily basis. And it certainly reaches out to the community as well. As I said, when you think about our champions, from U.S. Sugar out west to the Palm Beach Sheriff, why would the Palm Beach Sheriff be so heavily invested in education? Sheriff Bradshaw said to me a few years back, what it costs for him to incarcerate one person for a year, he can educate 4 scholars at the University of Florida.
Wow.
So my message to the business community is the old Fram, and I think you're too young to remember the Fram oil filter commercial. You can pay me now or pay me later. We either invest in our kids today in education, or we can build more prisons and more Boca Helping Hands to feed them.
Yeah. So before we head out, again, thank you so much for all the time you've given. All this information. It's so important for our listeners to read, to hear. I guess the question I have, in closing, is, for example, people are listening to this right now and they feel compelled to help. They feel like they want to help, and then they see, and they kind of just, like, their eyes just opened up to the fact that Palm Beach County isn't just Boca del Rey area. It's so much bigger than that. What would be something, I guess, advice you would give them if they want to, jump into this kind of and help other people, in education?
And I was going to give you a twofold answer. The first answer I'd always say to someone is just do something.
Right.
It doesn't take much. Do a canned good drive for Boca Helping Hands, or for Cross Ministries, or the Caring Kitchen if you live in Delray Beach. If you're a medical person, volunteer up at Caridad Center. Find somewhere in our community to make a difference. There are so many great partners in our community doing incredible work. If you're a former teacher, if you're a retired teacher, if you're somebody who believes in education, educationfoundationpbc.org. My name is James at Education Foundation. You email me directly and I'll follow up with you. You want to volunteer? We've got work to do. Today is a shopping day here at Red Apple Supplies. In about 20 minutes, 50 teachers are going to come through here. We need help packing up their supplies. Remember, it's contactless delivery now. It's online and on the move. We want the teachers to get online and order, but somebody's got to pull that order into a box, get it ready for them. Come volunteer with us at Red Apple Supplies. Our Red Apple Supplies is up in Riviera Beach. The school district gives us space, but get involved as a volunteer. Get the education license plate. Get to our website and look at our programs and ask yourself, what can I do? What can I support? And if you have any questions, email the CEO directly, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours.
That's the best part. Just email you directly at James at educationfoundationpbc.org. That's amazing. Just be able to talk to the CEO of the company right there. It's just awesome. But Jim, thank you so much for your time in talking to us today. I learned a lot today. I'm sure the listeners learned a lot today as well.
Well, and I want to thank you. And I'm going to go off script here for a minute. And so if I get inappropriate, just cut me off. I don't care. You and your family get it. I've known your family for a long time. And if there's one thing that I think the Heisers stand for, it's making a difference in the local community. Don't anybody mishear what I'm about to say. Yep, we got to support, National Red Cross and American Heart and American Cancer. Great organizations doing some great work. There's poverty and hunger right here in Palm Beach County. There's illiteracy and sickness right here in Palm Beach County. And one of the things I've always loved about your family and the Boca Tribune, which I'm one of the subscribers to, we're talking about the local community, folks. This is where it happens.
Yeah.
This is where we really make a change. You don't need to go to a foreign country over the seas to make a change. Just look to your left and look to your right. There's incredible poverty. There's incredible need right here in Palm Beach County, the nation's 10th largest school district, 179,000 kids. I need you. I need you to come help me touch the lives of these kids and make a difference for the future of Palm Beach County.
Yeah, for sure. Jim, thank you so much for the kind words and for being on the show today. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Look to do it again anytime you want.
For sure. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
All right, sir.
But that's going to wrap up for us today at Business Highlight. Hope you found this episode as informative as I did. If you enjoyed the content, just make sure you like it, subscribe, share, and follow our pages on social media. You'll see those links below me hopefully soon. Tune back next week as we talk to more local business owners in the community and what they do and how they help the community at large. So then, thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you have an awesome weekend. Take care.